There's something seriously wrong with my neighbor's kids. I'm worried something is going to happen to me. As I write this, I can't help but turn to look out the window to check if they're there or not. It's 1 o'clock in the morning and I can't go back to sleep. Beforehand, I should tell you more about myself and these people before I delve in deeper. My family, or more precisely, my grandma owns a patch of land out in the countryside where my parents built a family house where we come every summer to get away from unbearable summer heat waves in the city, usually towards the end of June. From what I remember, my grandma was in possession of the said patch since 1980 or 1981, I'm not really sure. Next to our patch of land was my aunt's patch of land, but nothing was ever built on it, and the patch next to it was empty up until 2 years ago when someone bought the said patch to build a family house on it. Last year, my father came into my room and asked me to dress up nicely and come downstairs to greet our new neighbors who bought the mentioned patch of land. Upon meeting my new neighbors, the parents seemed nice enough, though they also appeared to be a bit annoying given their lack of mannerism since they were country folk, but I didn't mind too much. From that point, I personally didn't interact with them much. They mostly stayed on their property, getting some work done, like, for example, building a shed, then a greenhouse. I eventually learned they had 4 children, ages 17, 15, 13, and 11. I was older than all of them, so I didn't feel the need to meet them, since I had no common topics of interest to discuss with them, given that they were all teenagers and kids. Well, I am a 25-year-old man, so now you see why. My first encounter with one of them was when I was sitting in my front yard. I was suntanning when the youngest of the bunch was walking the family dog, an alibi across my aunt's property. I remember the kid calling out to me, and I looked at him. "Hey, you, what's your name?" the kid asked in a friendly manner as he forced the dog to come to a stop. "Chris. And you are?" I forced myself to greet the kid so I didn't come off as rude while lifting my sunglasses from my eyes. "Name's Danny. Nice to meet you," he said. I remember nodding my head and slipping my sunglasses back on, thinking the interaction was going to end there, but I was wrong. "Just let me get my dog back to the house and I'll be right over," Danny said as he then dragged the dog off back to the house of his parents. In a few minutes, he was right on my property as he sat down on the grass beside me. I had to admit I was really uncomfortable, as I was way older than this kid. I'm in my 20s, yet this kid is 11 and not hesitant to approach me. I couldn't force myself to shoo him away just yet, to not be rude since he was one of my neighbor's kids. The whole time we talked, the conversation just felt weird. I had no common topics with this kid at all, so he had to do most of the talking. "Did you know I shot 3 birds in one day when I was up on a tree? How cool is that?" Danny bragged on, while I simply just agreed. This kid had some kind of off-putting energy about him. I didn't know what it was, but something about him made me feel even more tense. He was a kid, but the feeling was there. I once saw my dad taxidermy a wolf that our alibi was able to tear apart, and then he taught me how to taxidermy a fox. Danny continued to brag on. I wanted to call out Danny on his lies and exaggerated stories, but he was only 11, so I decided not to berate the kid, and I just barely listened to him at all. Then he left around lunchtime, and the feeling persisted even after, as I knew there was something wrong with this kid. I didn't get to meet the other 3, but I overheard rumors from my dad that the eldest, 17, is a bit of an alcoholic, and that his dad doesn't seem to mind the fact that his son is hardly of age. The next time I encountered the youngest, along with the rest of his brothers, was during lunch. I excused myself to use the bathroom. I remember going to the bathroom to use the toilet, and when I was done, something in my stomach was urging me to look out the window above the toilet. I climbed onto the closed toilet lid and looked out the window to spot 4 kids near the edge of the forest. One of them I immediately recognized to be the youngest, and they were huddled close together, stealing glances to each other every now and then while facing my house. This unnerved me a bit for some reason, even though I wanted to believe these kids must have been commenting on my family house and whatnot. On the other end, something told me these kids were talking about me and that they could see me looking back at them. I left the bathroom and decided to shrug off the incident. 3 days later, I was doing my usual exercising to lose some weight, and the sun was burning rather intensely. I retreated back into the family house to continue exercising there, and when I finished exercising, I went to my bedroom. My eyes accidentally locked onto my bedroom window, and I got that same nagging feeling to look out the window, that somebody was out there. My body slowly crept towards the window. As I leaned down and looked carefully through the blind, there, I saw the kids again. What unsettled me this time was They were closer to the family house, and not at the edge of the forest anymore. All four of them stood next to each other, facing. I don't really remember. I couldn't tell if they were facing my family house or my window specifically, but their gazes were haunting and intense, as if they were expecting something to happen. They stood next to each other, still like soldiers awaiting for a commander to bark orders at them. That night, I brought up the concern with the kids' bizarre behavior to my parents, and they laughed it off. I remember them telling me to relax, that they are just kids, and are probably toying around with me, and I should just let it go. The third encounter with the kids was the most frightening one I've ever had, and that was yesterday at 2 in the morning. That day I was exhausted from working out, and had fallen asleep at around 10 p.m. I woke up at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom, and once I was finished, the same nagging urge to look out the window above the toilet invaded my mind. Instinctively, I climbed onto the closed toilet lid silently, peeking my head to look out the window, and nearly screamed. The kids were much closer now, only a few inches away from the back door to the backyard. I couldn't get a look at their faces right away, given how dark it was outside and in the bathroom as well. Once my eyes adjusted, however, I realized their gazes were pointed in my direction. Their wide, bloodshot eyes locked onto me, and their facial expressions remained the same as the last time I had seen them, frozen, haunted, as if they were waiting for someone to give them a command to do something. I was terrified. Something terrifying and dark was lurking beneath their bloodshot eyes, and the fact that they were all neatly lined up next to each other, their arms at their sides, made the whole situation even more horrifying. I remember instinctively running around the house and locking up all the doors and windows, all while my grandma and parents continued to snore away, as if they couldn't comprehend the gravity of the situation. I hardly slept that night. Tonight I'm waiting to see if they will make an appearance again.